What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
Does your book, film, resource, product, or business change people's lives for the better? Hi, I'm Jackie Lappin, founder of Conscious Media Relations, a unique boutique PR firm that helps you connect with your mind, body, spirit, and conscious lifestyle audience in a big way. We reach 3,500 specialty media and all the key mainstream outlets in the United States. I invite you to explore our radio media tour that connects to 2,600 personal growth radio shows. There is just nothing else like it. Come check out our website and read our rave reviews.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Joan Gattuso, who is a best-selling author of A Course in Love and now brings her wisdom to a topic that affects everyone: how to forgive when forgiveness seems impossible. Joan's practical and inspiring teaching serves as a compass to the spiritual principles that can transform bitterness into beauty and anger into peace. The road to forgiveness is the path to freedom. It is this freedom, she writes, that allows us to move forward so that we can live a happy and joy-filled life. Joan Gattuso, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's my delight to join you today. Thank you.
And it's my delight to have you on. And we were just talking off air there about Wayne Dyer, because I saw that Wayne put a reference to your book as well. And I was like, no, that can't be Wayne Dyer. And it was, of course. And lovely that you got to know Wayne Dyer.
Thank you. My husband and I, we really knew Wayne quite well for quite a few years, 15, 18 years, 20 years.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, you'd have seen his kids grow up and everything then.
Well, I didn't know his family. I knew Wayne and his assistant, Maya. That's who I knew.
Okay.
Wayne and his assistant.
Right. Okay. Okay. I see. Wow. Well, you've done some. I was just saying off air as well about your previous book, A Course in Love, which is a great book, and it's on the screen right now as we speak.
Oh,
But today
thank
we
you.
no problem. And today we're talking about your latest book, which is The Power of Forgiveness. But what I'd like to do as well, which I always do with my guests, but I couldn't really, I didn't get to read A Course in Love, so I didn't get to really know about this. But just tell us a bit about your background as well. How did you get into this work?
Oh, it was a spiritual calling. It was just a spiritual calling. The Holy Spirit called me and I didn't want to answer the phone. But the call kept coming in and coming in. And finally I said, okay, I'm here. Use me. And that was a long time ago now. I studied in the Unity seminary called Unity School of Practical Christianity, which is in Missouri. And I actually was ordained 34 years ago. And I served, no, 36 years ago, excuse me, I served in the pulpit for 34 years and then retired from pulpit ministry 2 years ago and moved to the island of Molokai in Hawaii. But about 15 years ago, I started writing. That's when I wrote A Course in Love and then followed by A Course in Life. I studied with the Dalai Lama since 1991. I wrote my third book, The Lotus Still Blooms, taking the basic spiritual principles of Tibetan Buddhism, which are not easy for the Western mind to understand. They're just not. The teaching is very different than our way of teaching and communicating. And I took basic tenets of Tibetan Buddhism and put them in language that we could understand. And that's a beautiful book, The Lotus Still Blooms.
Wow, you've rubbed shoulders with some amazing people on your journey. You
Oh,
really have.
thank you. Thank you. That's been part of my calling. It just has been, right? My husband and I, we've gone to France to study with Thich Nhat Hanh, and I've gone to study with, the, who did I study with? I studied with Sai Baba. I've studied with many great spiritual teachers through the ages. Sri Yuknath, I can't think of his name right now.
And these teachers, they would just, they would allow you to come into their space and be part of what though? What was it? Was it? I mean, what did you have to do to get with these people?
Well, I mean, I went into their space, but I didn't go into their living rooms. I didn't go into their personal dens. But like the first time I went to study with the Dalai Lama, I had been very, very ill. I had cancer surgery in Ohio, where I came from. And a friend of mine was going to New York City to Madison Square Garden, which is a huge venue in New York, to see the Dalai Lama. And she asked me to go 2 weeks after I had this major surgery. And I knew I had to go. I knew I had to go. My husband thought I was out of my mind, but he also knew he could not stop me. So in a wheelchair, I went to Madison Square Garden, and I didn't know about sponsor tickets back then, Kevin. So my girlfriend and I, we were in the second to the last row at Madison Square Garden, which seats, I don't know, 5,000, 6,000 people. And way down front, there was this little tiny Dalai Lama on the stage. He was like the size of a thimble. And there were people Richard Gere was on the stage with him, and a famous fashion designer was there. I thought, how do those people get down front? Well, they became sponsors. So afterwards, I've gone about 21 times. Afterwards, I became a sponsor. And what happens when you're a sponsor is you get a lovely seat up close and personal. You also get to go to either a luncheon or an audience with the Dalai Lama. So I've been able to meet the Dalai Lama a number of times. But trust me, when people say they know the Dalai Lama, I don't think so. He is so surrounded by security, and I say hello, Dolly, but he doesn't say hello, Joan, back to me, And we say hello by bowing and putting our hands in a prayer pose and bowing. And he'll do that too, but he does not know my name. And that's okay, because I know his name, and his presence it's being in the presence of the divine. He's such a sacred presence.
Well, I think it's beautiful what you've been able to do, and I suppose it's taken you on the journey that you've been on. It's what it's allowed you in the end to write these wonderful books, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I don't want to forget to mention Sogo Rinpoche. That's the teacher. I couldn't remember his name. He has a monastery in France, but he comes to the United States, I don't know, once a year, once every other year to teach. I know he goes to England to teach as well, Sogo Rinpoche, and he's a wonderful Buddhist teacher as well. But the Dalai
Nice.
Lama, I mean, the Dalai Lama is holiness personified.
Yes, it's an incredible journey. Thank you for sharing that with us as well. That's very, very interesting. Okay. Well, the power of forgiveness. Now, I guess to write this book, you had to have some experience yourself in forgiveness. Tell us about the marriage that you had and how you were able to forgive that.
Thank you for asking me that. You know, I've forgiven that situation so deeply that it truly doesn't come to mind anymore. People say, well, I can forgive, but I can never forget. What I teach, Kevin, is if you forgive enough, you do forget. It just isn't in your consciousness anymore. But actually, it's in A Course in Love that I talk about the first marriage. And it was a very painful, traumatic relationship. It was brief, but I was just naive and ignorant, and I thought he was going to take care of me. And by God, he wasn't going to do that. I thought he had my good and he wasn't going to share it with me. And so it was a very, very difficult situation. Things would happen. I was a pulpit minister, and things would happen. People would say, well, like what? I'd say, like Sunday morning, he would take my car keys and hide them. And my church was a 45-minute drive away, and I had no way to get there. I mean, he would do things like that. He also gave me bills every month, what it cost for the petrol for the car, what it cost for my groceries for the month. I mean, it was just, he was so parsimonious. It was just so ridiculous. And then he started to become violent. And then I knew I had to do something. And so I did not want a future relationship like that. And I studied the text A Course in Miracles for many years, even back then for many years. And one of the lessons is forgiveness offers everything I want. And I wanted a relationship different from that one. I wanted what the Course in Miracles and what I call and teach a holy relationship. And so I knew I had to forgive him. And I set a very pointed, direct course to forgive him. And I worked on spiritual exercises. One, do you want me to tell you what it was? I think it's very helpful for people to
Please.
hear. I took a pad of paper and I would put his name. When I speak of him in public, I always call him LG. Those were his initials. And I would put LG, I forgive you for. I didn't say I forgive you for being a son of a, can I say bitch? I, I didn't say that. I said, I forgive you for taking my keys for my car on Sunday morning and traumatizing me. I forgive you for threatening me. I forgive you for grabbing me by my throat and throwing me down on the bed. And each time I say, I forgive you for this, I forgive you for that. I just didn't write a long laundry list. I would say, I forgive you for each time. And then I would do this for 15, sometimes 30 minutes. And then I would take this list to the fireplace, or if somebody doesn't have a fireplace, you can take it to your kitchen sink and burn it. And burning isn't magic, but it's symbolic of it just dissolving into ash, just coming down to nothing. And I would burn it, and then I'd sit down and meditate and just do deep breaths, deep cleansing, healing breaths for 10 or 15 minutes. And then I get up and go about my day. Now, if anybody seeing us wants to do that, I say, don't do it more than 3 times a week. It brings up too much toxic energy if you do it every day. Don't do that to yourself. But Kevin, do you want to guess how many years I did this until I felt really free from that energy and free of that trauma?
No, I can't. No idea how many.
Five. Five. I
Five
did it
years.
5 years.
That's a long time, really, isn't it?
It's a long time. So there's a very funny story that follows, believe it or not, funny, that follows on the heels of that I write about on The Power of Forgiveness. Do you want me to tell you that
Yeah,
story?
please,
I love
please.
this story. It's amazing. It's in The Power of Forgiveness. And for many years, when I lived in Ohio, I went to the man that was considered the top hairstylist in Ohio. My husband, David, went to him as well. And we had an appointment one Monday morning, and we walked in, and Cordell greeted us at the door, and he said, oh, I'm so sorry. My son was in the hospital this weekend. I didn't get to go over the books, and the books got scrambled, and I'm so sorry. And we're going like, what are you talking about? He goes, LG's wife, the wife that he had an affair with when we got divorced, LG's wife, she has an appointment between your two appointments. She's sandwiched between the two of you. And we were like, that's okay. She doesn't know me. She doesn't know us. We don't know her. I wouldn't recognize her. He said, are you sure? I tried to reach her to cancel, but she had already left home. I said, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. So here I am in the beauty shop, and I've been to salons in England and France and elsewhere. So I know there's these wash bowls and they're lined up in a salon, and I'm in the middle wash bowl. And I know the people at this salon. I've gone to this salon for decades, like 20 years. And the shampoo girl is about to do my hair. And every person that comes in, I go, is that her? Is that her? So much for not caring what she looked like. Is that her? And she would go, no, no, no. And then this woman came and she sat at the wash bowl to my right. And Kevin, I'm tall. I'm long-legged and I'm tall. And this one was exactly the same dimensions as me. She had long legs, long torso. And I said, is that her? And the girl nods yes. And I said, don't you think that's funny? She said, I think it's freaking hysterical. So I'm looking at this woman and I'm observing her. She didn't have on a wedding ring. She didn't have on a piece of jewelry. She didn't have on a piece of stitch of makeup. And I thought, now that's interesting, because our outer expression was very different, very different. So she's done, and I have a treatment put on my hair, and I'm still sitting at the wash bowl. And this woman goes and she gets her hair cut. And I'm watching her like a hawk the whole time. And I can see she's not going to get a blowout. She's just going to leave. And I'm telling you, my inner voice said to me, it's now or never. So I got up and I walked across the salon and I stood right in her personal space. And I said, I think I call her Patty in the book. I said, Patty? Yes, I'm Patty. I said, Patty, I'm Joan Gattuso. I know she would recognize my name. She said, you are? And then the first thing she said was, I've read everything you've written. I've read you in Unity Magazine. I've read your books. I said, you read in A Course in Love what I said about LG? And she said, yes. I said, how do you feel about that? She goes, it's absolutely the truth. It's absolutely the truth. And we talked, Kevin, like soul sister to soul sister. And she said, you are the only one in the world that knows what I've lived through. You are the only one in the whole world. And I said to her, I said, has he changed? He used to be so parsimonious. She goes, oh, no, he hasn't changed, but I control the money. He doesn't control the money at all anymore. I said, man, I certainly couldn't do that with him. And I said, how about his family? Well, he had 3 children. 2 of them had died. One died of alcoholism and one died a sudden death kind of experience. And she said, his son, the younger son, whom I had been close with, she said, he won't have anything to do with his father anymore. It's something I don't want to say on the air. Something horrible had happened. And I said, you stayed. She said, he started to get dementia and I had no choice. She said, I work on forgiving him every day. I said, well, I forgave him. I worked on it and I have forgiven him. And then I said to her, Patty, the spiritual teacher that I am, I said, I know I'm not supposed to feel sorry for people. I'm supposed to have compassion for people. I said, but Patty, the truth is, I feel sorry for you. I just feel sorry for you because I know what you lived through. She reached over and she hugged me. We hugged each other. She stayed while I got my hair cut and talked to me. We hugged each other goodbye. And I tell you, in those moments, we really had this sacred energy together. We had this sacred moment that we healed the past. We healed the past between us. It was powerful. It was very powerful.
Isn't that absolutely incredible, that story? Absolutely incredible on so many levels. Yeah.
What I say is I can't make this stuff up,
No, absolutely. You cannot. And by sharing this story, you've been through it, so you're not running this from being unexperienced as in the power of forgiveness. This is your truth, and this is what you've helped other people with and continue to as well. Okay. Well, I mean, you say in your book as well that the forgiveness is a path to freedom, and in that story, that's what you've expressed as well. And just remind us, why is that, as far as you're aware, is forgiveness a path to freedom?
Well, the cover of the book has a gilded bird cage, and the doors open, and a little yellow bird has flown out. That's symbolic of the freedom. We're caged in our lives by our unforgiveness, by our grievances, by our hurts and sorrows from the past. And when we forgive, we set ourselves free. Because when we don't forgive, we are bound by those experiences. They never leave us until we forgive them. No matter how horrible they are, we need to forgive. And that's what I have taught people for many, many years, Kevin.
Do you think there's any time scale to forgive? Like, for example, if someone's done us, horrible things towards us, whatever they may be, right, and we feel we're not ready to forgive yet, there's nothing wrong in that. If we're not ready to forgive, we're not
No,
ready to forgive.
no, no. And I think we can pray that we reach the point where we're ready to forgive, but don't, I call it false forgiveness. Don't think because we're talking today that you have to call up somebody who's just been dastardly towards you and say, okay, I heard this woman on Kevin's The Moore Show today and I'm going to forgive you. And you have hate for that person in your heart. Don't do that to yourself. Begin to work on yourself, forgive yourself. I had to forgive myself for being in that relationship. I was not kidnapped and pulled into that relationship. I went into that. So
That's
start by forgiving yourself.
That's a really good point, actually. Yes, that's a really good point you raised. Actually, you've forgiven yourself. You've not just forgiven him. You've actually had to forgive yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do have to forgive ourselves. So if you feel you aren't ready to forgive another person, start working on forgiving yourself for your part in being in that relationship with that individual so that you begin to set yourself free, because forgiveness sets us ourselves free. We begin to have what I teach, a future different from the past. And how many of us would not want to have that?
And as you can probably relate to your previous husband, he was there as a teacher. Do you think? Do you think that he came into your life to teach you a lesson?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He was an Academy Award winning actor. He deserved an Oscar for his performance. Absolutely, he was my teacher. And I only have love in my heart for him now. And I will share with you, he passed away last year. He actually did get dementia and went downhill fairly quickly, as I understand, and he passed away. And I just have compassion for him. He was not a happy man. He was not a happy soul on the planet.
That's yeah. That I'm sorry to hear that, and I'm sure that when you heard that news, it is upsetting. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
I was married to him for 6 years.
yeah,
We had been in a relationship for a handful of years before we got married.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I will say I was married for 6 years, but we only together for about 2 of those 6 years because we were
Right.
frequently separated because things were so tumultuous.
Yes, yes, I can only imagine, and I see it so many times. Really strong women, powerful in a sense. Getting into these abusive relationships, but then I have to look at it with different eyes and see it from a different perspective. That there is teaching that's taking place in that.
There is a teaching, but that's such a good point you just made, Kevin. Really powerful women, sometimes we let ourselves be abused. We're afraid to use our power in a relationship with a partner, and we let ourselves be abused. It's really upside down thinking, but that happens a
Oh, it
lot.
happens a lot. I've seen it a lot, and it's not nice to see it sometimes. Yet you have to look at the bigger picture as well. And there was another point I was going to raise there, but it's left my mind just right now. I'm sure it'll come back. Okay, now. Yeah, well, so what was this story of what you've been through, some of the inspiration behind writing the book then as well?
Well, the story with my former husband, that inspired me to write my first book, A Course in Love. All the stories that came afterwards in my own life and being the minister for so many people that had profound stories of forgiveness and abandonment and abuse and how they forgave and went on in their lives. And that's when I knew I had to write a book teaching people about the power of forgiveness. Forgiveness does offer everything we want. I wanted to be happy. Most people want to be happy. Most people want to live a life free of conflict. The way to get there is through forgiveness.
And as you said as well, well, you didn't say this, but I'm going to say, forgiveness, it's in the mind. It's something we can mentally project in our mind. We don't have to be coming from any ego space to to want to be in someone's face to forgive. We can do it in the mind.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you brought up that point, Kevin, because people say to me, well, should I call so and so and tell him or her I've forgiven him or her? And I say, no, that's your ego that wants to call and say, I've forgiven you. Just do the work. And forgiveness isn't just because we make this intellectual decision, I need to forgive. We need to do exercises. So the power of forgiveness, every single chapter has one or more exercises on forgiveness that get us to this clear state of mind. We have to, erase those soiled places in our minds.
Absolutely, but I think inherently, well, no, we seem to not want to forgive sometimes. We seem to want to hold on to grudges and pain and everything else. It's as though it feeds our depression sometimes to live in the past and not be in the present moment.
Absolutely. And we do hold on to the past, do we not? We hold on to the past and we hold on to our pain. And what I frequently say is, what will you talk about if you forgive your ex-husband? What will you talk about if you forgive your girlfriend? What will you talk about if you forgive your mother and your father and your siblings? What will there be left in your life if you don't have that story to harp on?
Yeah, because it's not just it could be family as well. This could be a family issue that we've not forgiven. That's quite a big one as well.
Absolutely. I believe we all need to heal our childhood issues. And I also have experienced we all have to some degree, varying degrees, but to some degree, childhood issues that need to be healed, where we didn't receive the love we needed or we wanted. We had siblings that picked on us. We had challenges in grammar school. Our parent was an absentee parent, whatever it might be. We have to forgive that so we can go on and be free.
So in a sense, then, it's a gift to ourselves to be able to forgive.
Thank you for saying that. I usually say that by now. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves. It is a gift we give to ourselves. So when you think, well, I'm not ready to forgive that person, she doesn't deserve my forgiveness, it isn't about that other person. It's about you. It's about you forgiving yourself and forgiving that other person so you can be set free.
Yeah. I think time has its own way sometimes of allowing that space to be created, though, doesn't it?
Time, but the work isn't done, Kevin. I found it can be decades old. Recently, I worked with a woman that she and her brother. There's a term used here in the United States. I don't know if you use it in the UK or not, but it's called Irish twins. Do you use that term? It's when children are born within the same year, within 12 months, but they're 12 months apart. So it's almost like they're twins, but they were born in December and January, whatever it may be. So this woman and her brother were 12 months apart. And the mother died giving birth to the woman. The mother died giving birth. The brother had been enraged with his sister. These people were in their 70s, Kevin. They were in their 70s. Wow. And he had been enraged with his sister their entire lives. They were from a very well-to-do family. They had many of the outer trappings of an easy life and education and etc. But he lived in rage towards his sister, and she began to be on a spiritual path and forgive what happened, forgive her mother. I mean, Kevin, a name had been picked out for this baby girl. When the baby died, when the mother died, the father gave her the mother's name. She carried her mother's name. It just was this horrible, painful story. She had a brother who was 11 months, 12 months older than she, who hated her. It was just so painful. So we were talking, this was just this past summer. We were talking and she says, what can I do? I've tried everything. He's so nasty to me. What can I do? I said, well, a technique I've been working with recently is that you write the person a letter and you tell them everything you like or love about them. She goes, oh, I love that idea. So she wrote to him, and each thing she could think of, she said, I love you, John, for always being generous with me. And he was. He was well-heeled and he was generous with her. I love you, John, for being such a good father to your 2 children. I love you, John, for caring for our father so much before he died. I love you, John, for, and each time she did this, she filled up a whole page doing this, and she mailed it to him. And she just, she took a deep breath and she let it go. And a couple weeks later, he called her and he said, Helen, I got your letter. And she said, oh, I'm glad. I mean everything I wrote in there. And he goes, I know you did. And I just want to say to you. And then he whispered, Kevin, I love you. He had never told her that her entire life. He whispered and said, I love you.
Wow.
And she said, I love you too. And she said, his voice was like a child's voice, like a little boy's voice. And their relationship has been different. This was back in the summer. Their relationship has been different in the 6 months since then. It's been
Isn't
different.
it sad that?
It's
yes,
evil.
yeah, and that's a beautiful story that he had the awakening moment then to not leave it till he's passed on, that he could do it now.
Exactly. That's what she and I talked about, that, they had time to heal while they were both of able body and mind. Absolutely.
But then it could be but the opposites do happen in this world, where the grudges, they carry on until the people have passed on. And they will sort it out one day, because when the other does cross over and they meet up, that there will be a reconciliation. But I think it's really powerful to do it on this side of the fence rather than waiting to go back home.
That says it so well. Absolutely. It's better to do it on this side of the fence. I love that. Yes, it is. And again, forgiveness frees us up. It's the gift we've given to ourselves, and we can go on and live the rest of our lives without that burden on our heart and soul.
And let's just look at the power it gives us as well, by forgiving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It gave my friend power. It gave her brother power, because he didn't have to be so hateful towards her anymore.
No. Now, there are all sorts of atrocities that take place in this world. It's easy for us to say, well, let's look at it spiritually. Okay, yeah, we can say that, but we're still here having a human experience, and our veil is quite, it's a veil that we can't completely remember where we came from or what the purpose of life is. I'm sure if we knew, it would be game over, but we're still having a human experience. But yeah, right. but when abuse happens, murder, rape, whatever these horrible things that take place in this world, how does someone forgive in that space? It's very difficult, isn't it?
Oh, it's most difficult. It's most difficult. In the power of forgiveness, I tell the story of a woman who was in my congregation when I was in Cleveland, a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, and she had been a social worker. She had had a gentleman friend who was also a social worker. What I say about him was that he did not live under a bridge. He didn't live, under a tarp someplace. He was a social worker. He was very involved in life, and she had broken up with him for whatever reasons there were, and she went on with her life. And almost a year had passed when he showed up at her front door one day, and when she opened the door, he shot her in the face. He shot her in the face. She hit the floor, obviously. She was on the phone with her best friend, Cheryl. Cheryl knew something horrid had happened, but she didn't know what. And she called 911. Meanwhile, in the back of the house, there was a serviceman doing some repair work in the kitchen. He came running out. He, screamed. He saw what had happened. He saw that Marcia was on the floor. This guy was about to kick her, to roll her over, to shoot her again. And Mike ran out of the house and ran down the street. And the cops arrived and they went after him and all that. But what happened was that Marcia went into intensive care at the hospital, and the doctor said that she was brain dead, that there was no coming back from this situation. Now, she and I, we've labeled this period of time 3 weeks at a Chinese restaurant, because when she was in her coma in intensive care, she's lying on her bed and there's a curtain around her bed, and she sees people on the other side of the curtain walking back and forth. And she thought those people were the chef, the servers, the waiter, the sous chef, and that she was in a Chinese restaurant. So we call that time 3 weeks in a Chinese restaurant. And the doctors had made the decision that they were going to pull the plug. And her best friend Cheryl was there as well. And Cheryl was very distraught, extremely, as you can only imagine one would be. And Cheryl saw a tear roll down Marcia's eye, roll down her cheek. And she said, she knows what we're about to do. She knows what's about to happen. She can hear us, even though you think she can't and she has no brain function. She's starting to cry. From that moment on, her healing began to accelerate. They obviously did not pull the plug. She was in intensive care only for a couple more weeks, and they put her in a regular ward at the hospital for quite a while. I forget now exactly, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. Then she went into rehab. She is blind in the eye where the bullet went. The bullet lodged in her spine, so it's never been able to be removed because it's too dangerous to remove it. But Marcia went on with her life, and she knew she had to forgive this son of a gun. She had to forgive him, and he shot her in the face. He was just crazy. He was a social worker that worked with a PhD social worker in my congregation. I mean, people in my congregation knew this man. He had a reputation, a good reputation in Cleveland. And then he had done this dastardly deed. But Marcia went on with her life. She moved to California. She began and completed a PhD program. She met a lovely new man at church, and she got married at Christmas time. She got married. She's really happy. She has a life that's working. And she said, I couldn't have this life if I hadn't forgiven Mike. I had to forgive him. He was my teacher. And what, again, an Academy Award winning performance. He was her teacher.
Both of them. I mean, and if that horrible incident had never taken place, maybe she would have never have done what she went on to do. Maybe she would have never have met the gentleman she's with now. I mean, it's easy for me.
She would have never met him. He was in Southern California and she was in Cleveland, Ohio. No, she would have never met him. And like you said, she probably wouldn't have gone on to get her PhD, to get her education.
It's
to do all the good she does in the world
Thank
now.
you so much for sharing that story. It's stories like this that from first-hand accounts as well, but especially that tie in so beautifully to stuff like this. And it's not just trying to make a square peg fit. It's actually her truth, if you asked her as well. God, it's just incredible. I mean, where do you think then, in a story like that sort of karma comes into forgiveness as well?
Oh, I mean, I do think that Marcia and Mike had karma together. They danced this dance together because they were an unlikely pair from the get-go. They danced this dance together. My former husband and I, we had karma together. He's not the kind of person I would have ever been attracted to under normal circumstances. I think karma does come into play, and that who knows if it's from past lives or what, that we have to be with these people and learn. They teach us the lessons of forgiveness, and we teach them lessons of forgiveness if they're willing to learn as well. So Marcia and Mike, they definitely had karma together.
Yeah, I can feel that most definitely, and what an amazing story, and hope for other people as well out there. And it doesn't have to be as severe as that, but we can soon relate these, we can relate stuff into our life as well, can't we? I think we all can, that had this certain situation not happened, I wouldn't have gone on this path, even though sometimes this path can be quite difficult. There's always,
Right.
There's always seems to be joy at the end of it. We're just, some of us just, are just at the beginning part of that journey right now.
Okay.
I will say this as well, that in karma, Do you think sometimes, it has to be so difficult? No, sorry, not in karma. Sorry, in forgiveness. Do you think it has to be so difficult? Do you think that sometimes we take the path? Do you think that sometimes the path of the least resistance is actually the happier path?
That's an interesting thought. I'd have to contemplate that a bit, Kevin. The path of least resistance is the easier path. Could be. I've just never been wired that way personally, but it could be true. Now, I think forgiveness comes easier to some people than others. Some people tend to hold on to grudges, tend to hold on to the hurt from the past. And some people, they're just willing to give the other person a break, to let it go, to be free, to go on.
Yes, and of course that in your book as well, you talk about forgiveness offers everything I want, and I think that's so true.
It really, from good health to happy relationships to healthy children. I mean, forgiveness is the way to get there. To the ideal career. How long have you been in your career?
For me, doing this, probably about 7 years now.
Have you? No.
Yeah, mate, it feels longer.
Good job. Good
show.
Thank
you very much. No, it feels longer. I left university and went into this broadcasting career. I just, decided to make a change, but I can really resonate with the forgiveness part, especially from ex-partners, most definitely.
Okay, and we can't have what the Course in Miracles and I call a holy relationship if we're clinging to the pain from an old relationship. We need to forgive the pain from the old relationship, glean the lessons, and go on so that we can create that, again, a future different from the past.
Absolutely. And there is a life beyond forgiveness as well.
Right, because it's freedom. Somebody asked me in an interview last week how much forgiveness work I did every day, and I said, not any actually now, because I don't have anything to forgive now. I don't have anything to forgive now. I had one annoying thing happen when we came here to Molokai, and I forgave that person. And then last week, it was a store owner. And last week, David told me, he doesn't own that little store anymore. It said under new management. I said, oh, great. Now I can go back in. So things just don't annoy me anymore. I don't have upsetting situations. I don't have upsetting relationships because I have holy relationships, and we all can have our relationships be holy ones.
Yeah, and that's sort of tying back into your previous book as well. Oh gosh, what's the title called again? Sorry, A Course in Love. Sorry, A Course in Love. Yes, yeah, that's tying sort of back into that as well, because that talks about holy relationships as well, and
yes, that was the main theme of that book. How to create a holy relationship.
Because we can have a holy relationship with our family, with our with our life partner, with the people at work. It doesn't have to be so difficult, does it?
No, and that's such a good point. We can have it with people at work. We can have it with our siblings. We can have that with our parents, with our longtime friends and new friends. We can have new friends. Kevin, I have a new friend. It's been a couple years now because he read The Lotus Still Blooms. He winters in Arizona. And this man was a Catholic priest in the parish for 47 years. And when I met him, I didn't know that he had been a Catholic priest. I just knew this was a holy little man with a tiny little white ponytail, and he just radiated joy and love. And as we got to know each other, he told me that he had been a priest in the pulpit for 47 years. And he just texted me today because he started to read The Power of Forgiveness. And he just praises me. I love him so much. He is so sweet, but we have a holy relationship. We really do. And, we can have old friends like that, but we can also meet new friends like that.
Yeah, of course. And every person that comes in your life, it seems to be part of a much bigger jigsaw sometimes. Not that we should always look at it like that, because we are here to have a human experience, but it does seem to be that way, that everything's so ordained sometimes for a bigger purpose.
Absolutely. When I first met Tony, he asked me if I would be like his spiritual mentor and his spiritual coach. I got hysterical with laughter because I had been raised Catholic. I had left the Catholic Church right after college, so I was like, 22 or so. And then I have this older Catholic priest asking me to be his mentor. I said, oh, God has such a sense of humor, Kevin. Such a sense of humor. But talk about coming full circle, coming full circle with one's life. And Tony and I have become so close, so close.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely beautiful, I think this comes down to as well as love, and I think that's a guiding principle in your book, The Power of Forgiveness. Well, it seemed to be to me that love is the answer as well as part, that love is the overall answer when it comes to forgiveness.
Absolutely. In all of my books, I guess I could say that love is the overriding emotion, feeling that comes forth. And then I think we are here to love one another. We are not here to be a war, to have a battle going on all the time. We're not here to prove that we're right. We're just here to love. And if we can get that, life is a whole lot easier. We have nothing to prove, just to be that loving presence.
And we can use love in the principle of, when we've come out of, for yourself, a bad relationship, or for whatever it is that's in the moment now or in the past that wants forgiving, we can use the word I love you and thank you for being a teacher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you're saying that, there's a Hawaiian practice that I write about in The Power of Forgiveness called Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. And it's an ancient Hawaiian practice to heal discord between individuals. And do you want me to explain that? It's challenging to understand because there's 4 lines. The first one is that you, in your mind, not to the person's face, where our ego doesn't have anything to prove here. In your mind, you think of this person and you say, I'm sorry. Now the rational mind goes, I'm sorry for what? I didn't do anything to him. He did stuff to me. But we're saying, I'm sorry I've had such harsh and hateful thoughts toward you. I'm sorry I've done this towards you. And then we say, please forgive me. Please forgive me for hating you. Please forgive me for having said terrible things about you. Please forgive me. And then we say, now this takes several minutes. And then we say, thank you. Thank you for being my teacher. Thank you for showing me what forgiveness is all about. Thank you for showing me, Thank you for showing me that it's possible to forgive you. And then we say, I love you. I love you. There was a psychiatrist here in Honolulu several decades ago named Dr. Hugh Lin, and he was the head psychiatrist at a hospital for the criminally insane. And he would counsel each person one at a time. I don't know if you've read this in the book or not, but it's astonishing. It's a true story. He would counsel these criminally insane prisoners one at a time. They would come into the room. They would sit across from him, and he would say nothing. He would verbalize nothing. He would just do this Ho'oponopono technique over and over again. And eventually, Kevin, they had to close that hospital. There were no patients left. Everybody was healed. Everybody was healed. This is a true story that happened here in Honolulu by that technique.
I think that brings up a good point. It may be unrelated, but I think, it seems to be my truth. This is just my truth, that we come down here to have experience as a soul. So forgiveness is one of the a big thing for the soul to experience. I would have thought. So when we look at it from a different perspective, or have a perspective shift on it, that we see that actually, it's just what it is. It's just there's just acceptance in the moment that's just, this is part of being human, to forgive. If we can't forgive, what's the point?
Absolutely. So we can be willing to forgive, or we can be obstinate and stubborn and stay in our pain and stay in our suffering and refuse to forgive. We always have free will. We always have choice.
What about when it comes to children, though, in the sense when, if a parent's lost a child, that is difficult, isn't it?
It's very difficult, very difficult. I write about that in a previous book about, when children are sexually abused. That's horrific. It's horrific. But at some point, that child grows up and becomes an adult, and she or he has to realize my soul had this experience so I would grow. Now I can choose to forgive and grow, or I can choose to stay in this horrendous pain the rest of my life. And I've known those that have chosen to be forgiving and grow and move on. And that trauma doesn't touch their souls any longer. But that is a lot of work. It's sad, it's horrible, it's dastardly, and it's a lot of work.
Yes, yeah, and I also met. I mean, that's a great point as well. I mean, you cannot ignore the sexual abuse side, but also, if a parent's lost a child as well, just through some whatever it may be, medical issue, or a bloody run over or something terrible. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult, isn't it? You have to go through the grieving, but also to forgive yourself that there was nothing that you could have done for it as well in that situation.
Absolutely. I have people in my life that this boy that died, he played the baby Jesus in one of my earlier Christmas pageants on Christmas Eve. He was the baby Jesus. And 8 years ago, he graduated from Miami University, which was my alma mater. He graduated from Miami. The family went on a family vacation with his parents, his younger brother, and another couple that the lady was a doctor. And when he was on a patio, a porch, outside, he was on one and everybody else was on another one in another part of the house. He choked on a hot dog, Kevin. He fell off the porch at 22, 21. He died. I'd known this boy literally from the day he was born in the hospital. And the mother has never gotten over it. Never. And then I went back home this summer and I spoke and I saw these people, and she started talking about her son. She starts to cry like she did every time when I still lived in Ohio. And I said, "How many years has it been?" And she said, 8. I probably could have been a little more compassionate, but I went, 8 years? It's been 8 years and you're still like this? Are you in therapy? What are you doing to heal your soul? Well, no, she wasn't in therapy. We all knew this wonderful therapist together. She wasn't going to him anymore. She wasn't in therapy. She was in trauma like it had just happened. Now, I've never had a child, let alone lost a child, so I do not have a judgment about this. I just know that this would call for a lot of healing work, a lot of soul work, and that there was a reason why he came and there was a reason why he left. And if she ever could reach that point, she would be free, because she is living like every day was the day she found him dead down below the porch.
I bet you that where he is now, he does not want her to be going through that pain all the time. He wants her to carry on and live her life. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I know that's true. Absolutely.
But this is just as an example of not forgiving and giving and not giving yourself that power back, and carrying on for the rest of the family as well. It's you cannot judge. No one's judging in this point right now. It's just there may be a different way for her. That's what we're saying.
Absolutely, that she could be free, because she's a dear, sweet person. She's very sweet, but she's still living in that trauma, which is just painful to even observe.
Absolutely, and reversing that as well. For someone that's run someone over, for example, or done something terrible, where they're always fragments of that memory are always coming into their daytime space, and it's they feel bad about themselves, or they feel that they're a bad person because whatever they've done, no matter how bad it is, they've never quite. They say they've forgiven themselves, but actually, if they had, would it keep reoccurring? Would it keep coming back to them?
I think if they had forgiven themselves, that memory would begin to fade. I think it would begin to fade, but it's going to take a lot of work. Remember, I worked 5 years with my former husband. going to take a lot of work, but what you said, that memory, if it keeps resurfacing, whenever it resurfaces, it just lets you know that more forgiveness work needs to be done. That's what the resurfacing memory tells us.
Right. And thank you for that. And there's also, because we're getting a bit to the end here right now, there's also a chapter in your book which I didn't get to read as well, which was called, Your Personal North Star as well.
Yeah, thank you. Remind me what I said, Kevin. No, that we have a focal point. Is that what I'm saying in that chapter? Or we both
I wasn't
don't
sure.
know?
I think it was. I didn't. That's one chapter I skimmed over. I didn't get to read it in depth, and I was like, I'll ask you about this chapter.
Great.
If you can't remember, don't worry. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I know.
I don't want to look it up right
don't.
now, but I think it's about having something in your life, like a spiritual teacher, a spiritual mentor that you can turn to for your inspiration, for your guidance. I believe that's in that chapter. I wouldn't swear to it, but I believe it is in that chapter.
That's a good point, though, isn't it? I think, when you have these things in your life, I think it really does help to move towards forgiveness, because you start looking at life in a completely different way, and when not down the normal sort of religious doctrine where we've all sinned, but in a sense where we are perfect, and we've just forgotten our power, we've forgotten where we've come from, we've forgotten who we are.
Right. That says it so well. Yeah, I believe in karma. You and I talked about karma a little bit ago. I don't believe in sin. I think sin is like a fantasy from the Middle Ages that was used to control people, uneducated people. But sin, no. Are we sinners? No. Are we sometimes ignorant? Yes. Are we ruled by our ego sometimes? Yes. Do we have karma to work out? Yes, but we're not sinners. We're from God. We're on a spiritual mission, and all things are lessons that God would have us learn.
Absolutely.
Things.
Thank you so much for that. Now, people can get in contact with yourself because you are able to, you're still working with doing private sessions. Is that right?
I do some. Yes, that is a possibility, and my website is all one word: lovehelpfromjoan.com. Lovehelpfromjoan.com.
Okay, we'll put that on the screen now, so that people can go there and check that out, and that's where people can contact you as well to get in contact with yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And just as a sort of final question, I know we've sort of skirted around the book here right now, and to get a full understanding of your work, you can only do that from reading the book. You really can. And we've got the books coming up on the screen now. But just as a sort of final question, what would you say is the most important message of your work?
Oh, what a huge question at the end. The most important message, I say back to forgiveness offers everything I want. Forgiveness is your path to freedom. If you want to be free from the past, forgive. If you want to have a future different from your past, forgive. If you want to have happiness in a holy relationship and love and joy in your life, be willing to forgive. And again, forgiveness is a gift you give to yourself. You're not giving that gift to somebody else. You're giving the gift to yourself.
Well, Joan Gattuso, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a complete pleasure.
Well, it has been my pleasure as well. Thank you so much. Thank you. God bless you, and bless your work, Kevin.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on The More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.